Today we're going to be talking about two new shoes, the New Balance 1080 version 13 and the Vongo version 6. One of these shoes, in my opinion, is going to be the sleeper hit for the next year. Today I actually brought in a friend of mine, my friend Colleen, who has worked at the shop for 9 years and is an accomplished runner and a coach herself, but I thought her input would be valuable because she has a lot of experience not only fitting people in these shoes, but personally running in them.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to give some advice.
Well, so I guess first we will start with the 1080 because this is a shoe that more people are probably familiar with than the Vongo. This is New Balance's max cushion neutral shoe, and we were just talking about they made these names way longer. So I'll start with mine. This is the New Balance Fresh Foam X 1080 version 13. What do you got there, Colleen?
I've got the New Balance Fresh Foam X Vongo version 6.
I don't know why they started doing that, but we're, really New Balance for run specialty for us, there's really two main midsoles. We have our Fresh Foam and then we have the Fuel Cell, which is in more of the performance-y stuff. And you've kind of run in a little bit of both. Which do you prefer? Do you like something that's a little more fresh foamy or a little more of the Fuel Cell side?
I think overall for training, I prefer the Fresh Foam. The Fuel Cell is nice, but I haven't been able to put too many miles on it other than racing and workouts.
Yeah, and I guess that's, the 1080 really is that like workhorse shoe. It's when you step into it, it is extremely plush. And one of the big updates on this compared to the last one is they added a little more cushion. They added to the stack height, they added 4 millimeters of stack height, and they lowered the heel drop down to 6 millimeters. One of the other nice thing was, even though they've added a lot of good benefits to this with more cushion and such, the weight came down by a full ounce. So on the men's side, we went from 10.3 down to 9.3, and on the women's down from 8.2 down to 7.2. The heel drop went from 8 millimeters to 6, which is sort of in line with a lot of the big brands out there on max cushion are starting to lower the heel down. So 6 millimeters is, at least for us, is a really popular number that we're seeing more people coming in specifically saying, I'm looking for a shoe from 4 to 6 millimeters. So now we can pull this a lot more easily than we could before just because of the drop. What about you? What have we seen on the Vongo?
Yeah, so the Vongo, very similar, added about 4 millimeters of stack height to it and also lowered the heel drop to 6 millimeters. It did gain about a ½ ounce on both sides, but I think that's with the added reinforcement of the stack height and just the overall structure and stability of the shoe.
I guess one of the nice things for me when I put on the 1080 compared to old versions, I think the fit was better on this. For me, mainly, is they got rid of some of the funkiness that they were doing on the heel cup. There was like a good 2 years there where they were playing around by having more of an indented Achilles locked in feel on the 1080. And they got rid of it and just did more of like a nice padded cushion 1080. And I actually was really excited about a 1080, I think it was 2 versions ago, and I put on and I immediately had to take it off and I never even got to run in it because it was so uncomfortable on my heel. This had amazing step-in feel. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. Amazing step-in. I put it on. It felt great. This didn't have any agitation initial step-in, so.
Yeah, and I could definitely tell, the Fresh Foam being their like high plush cushion feel, like I definitely sunk in this shoe a little bit more, which is also why to me this is obviously much more of like an everyday workhorse training shoe. It doesn't have that responsiveness that you find in like the Fuel Cell midsoles. It's much more of a plush cushion ride. And to be fully transparent, when I first put this on, I actually said, this is gonna be too soft for me. I don't think I'm ever gonna enjoy running in it. And the opposite of what I find in some shoes where a shoe might start off firm and get softer, I actually feel like this shoe firmed up a pinch for me when I wore it around and ran in it, which actually for me was more beneficial. I'm not a big, when running, like super marshmallowy shoe where I feel like my energy is going into the shoe. I like something that has a little more responsive bounce to it. So when I first put it on, I was like, I'm not gonna really like this shoe because I feel like it's a lot of wasted energy, but it has a little more pop to it the more that I'm running. What about you?
Yeah, that's good to hear. I thought New Balance was getting a little too soft at first, so it definitely feels firmer. For the Vongo, since it is a stable shoe, it's probably not quite as marshmallowy squishy when you step in because it's got that structure, but overall felt really good. And as someone who doesn't normally wear a stability shoe, I didn't feel too overcorrected and I didn't feel like it was too stiff. I felt like it had the right balance of softness and firmness there for you.
One of the things we were talking about before with the Vongo that they changed is, you know, if we're looking at the outsole on the outside of your shoe there, the old Vongos used to have a line, we used to call it the butt of the shoe. It had it sort of split down the middle, which when you would run, it would almost sort of fan out and give a little more lateral support. They did away with that with the Vongo. What they did now is they added a little extra density on the midsole, I'm sorry, on the medial side, and they added this plastic plate that runs through the center of the Fresh Foam that's adding a little more reinforced to it. It's not a carbon plate, it just gives a little bit more structure to it, but I think what we were finding is it's still much more of a medial support shoe. I think before with the old Vongo, because it felt like it fanned out, it provided a little more lateral support. So we would always say that the Vongo for us was like, you can pull it for anybody. It was like the jack of all trades. You could pull it for a neutral person, a stable person. And because it was Fresh Foam, it had like a good high amount of stack height and cushion that you could do long miles or short miles in. So like, I don't know. I love the new Vongo update, but I'm worried that if somebody severely supinates, this might not be the option for them.
Yeah, definitely, probably not. I think it'd be great for someone marathon training and you get in those longer runs and your form starts to break down.
Yeah.
So you're not a heavy pronator, but just give you that little support as you get farther into those training runs and miles to kind of help get you back in line.
Yeah, and that's honestly what I think I don't love about some of the older 1080s, and like it would get so soft. That exactly what you said, because I supinate hard, I felt like I would just dip. It would just, the longer I ran, the more I kind of would go that way. And I like that the old Vongo supported a little bit more. I just don't know if I have just as much on the outside, but definitely on the inside, I could feel my arch nice and protected. And I did feel on the 1080, I have a very high arch that I just didn't have quite as much height on the arch on this one. But on the Vongo, I didn't have the lateral support, but my arch felt much more protected on the Vongo versus the 1080. We were also talking a little bit about the change in the upper, and I will say on the last 1080, it was much more of a stretchy upper compared to this, but the sizing was much better. I found on the last one, I almost had to pull people back a half a size because it felt much more sort of streamlined and more like elf pointy, the way that the shoe kind of tapered off at the end, where this, to me at least, stepping in, it fit my foot perfectly and it didn't have like so much weirdness going. Like I almost felt like the last one they were trying to do a little too much with the upper and the heel cup, where this just seems almost like a much more traditional upper.
Yeah, definitely. It looks more like a traditional shoe. I will agree that they were getting a little weird with the sock-like and getting too pointed. So this looks like your standard New Balance. I think the step-in fits a lot better in the toe box. The one thing I'd say about the upper is while it's stretchy, it feels really thick.
Yeah. I actually, it's funny you say that. When I was walking around, that I said the same thing. I was like, this is going to be a hot shoe, you know. And I don't usually have a problem with like people coming in and saying like, you know, my foot feels too hot in it. I can tell with this shoe, especially, you know, as in the dog days of summer, this is going to be a hot shoe. So keep that in mind, that it might not be as breathable as some of the other 1080s and Vongos that we've seen down the road. You know, we were talking about like, in my opinion, you know, the sleeper shoe of the year, and to us, we've always said the Vongo is such an underrepresented and underappreciated shoe. I think so many people come in because of the brand association with 1080. Like obviously we're on version 13, so it's been around for a while, but this just has so much more just brand recognition. But at our shop, I think because so many people come in needing a little extra stability, whether they know it or not, you know, a lot of times we might pull both of these shoes and not tell people the differences, and they might just say, this one just feels more like what I need in my body. And that's, I think, for some reason, maybe it's just because the name is a little goofy. I wish they had almost like the way we have an 880 and an 860 in New Balance. I wish there was almost a 1080 and then another number that went to correspond, because these shoes really, they're both 6mm. They both came out at the same time. They both have the fresh, you know, they really are the yin and yang between the two, just the neutral and the stable. And at least for a lot of people coming in, a lot of people getting a longer distance, they just need a little bit more stability. And you're still getting that great fresh foam feeling in the Vongo. You're just getting that extra stability that you weren't getting in this shoe. Like, even though I'm probably more likely to run at a 1080, I think I would prefer the Vongo because it's probably more what I need, even though in my head I think I'm more better off in a neutral, more of a neutral shoe. I would probably be more beneficial in the Vongo than the 1080. That's just me.
Echo everything about Steve with the 1080, but the Vongo, I agree, it's gonna be a sleeper hit. It always has been for us in the store. And I think part of that is the name. It doesn't correspond. People don't know it as well, but this is definitely gonna be the shoe that you want if you're gonna do a half marathon or marathon and you're out there doing all the miles. I think it's gonna give you the right amount of cushion, the right amount of structure that you need to go feeling healthy. I would say comparatively to the 860, another stable shoe on New Balance's market, it's probably not quite as stable. So if you really are a heavy pronator, pronator, you'd probably be better off sticking with the 860. But the Vongo, I think, will be a great option for someone who's a light pronator or just looking for some overall extra support in that arch. Feels great, great stepping, great cushion, not too heavy, so should be a good hit.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate you joining me. And if you had any questions on the New Balance 1080 or the Vongo, feel free to leave it down in the comments and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And if you wanted to purchase one of these fine products, we'll have a link down below. And if you enter promo code RUNMORE, you will save 10% on your order and we'll ship it out for free. As always, thanks for watching. If you found this enjoyable, go ahead and give us a like and subscribe. It certainly helps us find new people out there. Happy running, happy trail running, happy everything. Thanks so much for watching.